Hello, welcome back to Shak's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today we're going to do a recap of 2025. So it's going to be a recap of all of the anomalous phenomena, big highlights of the year, things that I saw, heard about, conferences that I went to, books that I read, big news stories regarding aliens and UFOs and consciousness and psi abilities. So let's get into it. This is a time of year right now when I like to do a lot of reflection. It's the end of the year and we just had the winter solstice and we're not quite into the new year yet, but it's that quiet time where it feels really good to me to go back and kind of look through the year and see what happened, because as you know, it can feel like a blur and sometimes it's hard to even remember what we learned and what we saw, where we went. I don't know about you, but it's hard for my mind to keep all of that information organized without me going back through my calendars and through my notes and kind of writing things out. So that's why I really love doing these recap episodes. And in the Shak's Talks library, there's a playlist. You can go to the playlist tab and you can see all the different playlists that I have, which will take you through the different seasons, the UFO deep dive, the psychic season, the recap episodes. I'll always dump those. This one will go into that folder as well. The contact and abduction stories, consciousness and anomalous phenomena today is what we're in right now. That's the season. I think I'm going to call the next season The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, because I want to start weaving in a little more sci-fi fiction for our consideration. And I'll get into that more soon. And then I have a playlist of all of the different episodes from the different seasons that relate to remote viewing. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much. If you've been here, seen a couple episodes, I'm really grateful. Every time you guys watch, especially if you like it, give it a thumbs up. And especially to all the subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. It's so wonderful. It means a lot to me. I've been making this for a little over 2 years now, and it's a lot of work. Even though it's a low production, it's a lot of work researching and finding the time to put together these notes and then record these episodes. So to my currently 238 subscribers, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And 2026, I'd like to see the channel grow even more. So for my holiday solstice wish, I would love it if you could like this episode. If you decide to go back and listen to any of the ones that I'm going to talk about today from the past year, be sure to like those too. And if you can, maybe share them. You could share an episode on X. You could share it on your Facebook. You could let it be the conversation of a holiday dinner. The topic of conversation at your holiday dinner could be aliens. It could be the UFO hearing that happened this year in September. It could be Matthew Brown. There's a lot of exciting things that happened this year. So if you need to brush up on your facts, go back and check out these episodes that I'm going to talk about today. So let me get into my notes here. Okay. And I hope I'm in frame because I set up the camera and then I didn't look at it. I think it'll be fine. My new little fur baby roommate is sleeping right beside me right now, behind my booty. This little sweet black cat, his name is Oren, like the Oren from the Neverending Story. So let's talk about what happened this year. So 2025, I made 48 episodes of Shak's Talks this year. That's over 26 hours of content. I got this new microphone that I started using about halfway through the year. I got to go back to the Contact in the Desert conference this year. I saw Jesse Michaels and Chris Ramsey there, maybe for the first time ever. That was really cool that they were there. I did 114 remote viewing sessions on social remote viewing, socialrv.com. I did a live session on Shocks Talks. I read 5 different books for Shocks Talks this year. Abduction by John Mack, Astral Experiences by Jason Quitt, The Fourth Mind by Whitley Strieber, and Surviving Death by Leslie Kean. And I also met Leslie Kean at the Psy Games. And The Seventh Sense by remote viewer Lynn Buchanan. 2025 was the year of the mysterious drones. The Telepathy Tapes podcast got really popular this year. The first ever Psy Games was held in Charlottesville, Virginia this year, 2025. I lost my dog while he crossed over to the non-physical realms. My sweet baby Jet. He was my best friend and my research assistant for 8 years, and I talk to him all the time still. I have lots of pictures printed out that I can look through when I get sad. And I'm still getting hit with deep, deep grief. So sometimes the pain is almost unbearable. And if you know, you know. But we are strong. We can do hard things. And maybe death is an illusion. One of the themes of 2025. There was an important UAP hearing this September. The psionics, Dan Sherman and Jordan Jozak, spoke out about their experiences, and my episode on that was my highest viewed episode. It got like over 500 views, which is a lot for my channel. I haven't had that kind of success so far, so I'm really glad that people took an interest in that episode, and I hope that they can discover more of my excellent episodes about these topics. And this guide today can help you to find the ones that you'll be really interested in. The New Paradigm Institute held the 2nd annual Global Disclosure Day, and the new documentary, The Age of Disclosure, was just released recently. And some people are saying it might even be an Oscar contender for Best Documentary. We'll find out. I wanted to recap some non-Shocks Talks related news because, like I said, I love to look back throughout the year. I'm going to show you these planners that I use. This is my new one for this year. It's Chani Nicholas, the astrologer, makes these astro planners that are really, really cool. And you can basically put your birth chart information into them, and then you can learn about different transits throughout the year, how they affect you. And there are tarot card pulls that go for each month. So at the end of the year, I take the old planner. I used to get this Wee Moon calendar, but now I'm really into Chani's. Oh my goodness. Whoops, sorry, Oren. I go through and I mark everyone's different birthdays and anniversaries, and I like to write it out by hand so that when I get to that week throughout the year, I know what's going on. And so I'm about to close out this calendar year and start the next one, which is exciting because that means new exciting things can happen. So anyway, that was a whole activity that I did just a couple days ago, was transferring over all the dates. And I also made my solstice collage. I like to do just like a vision board. I know it sounds very cheesy, and I'm an artist and I work in arts and entertainment, but sometimes the really simple activities that may seem cheesy are actually very profound. And the act of collaging is a really beautiful way to reflect back through symbolism some of the subconscious thoughts that are kind of wanting to be seen by the conscious mind. So I was visualizing where I want to move my energy into, like what direction I'm going for the year ahead. And I made a really beautiful little collage for myself. And in my other non-Shocks Talks related news, I lightened my hair this year. I got sucked into some popular romantasy series like A Court of Thorns and Roses and Fourth Wing and Quicksilver. I spent time with my family and friends. I took pole dancing classes. I worked my 9-to-5 job. I got a raise. 2 of my really good friends moved away. One of my long distance friends and I stoked our voice memo based relationship. I made TikToks. I spent time with my family and friends. I traveled to New York and LA. Ooh, I said family and friends twice. That's how much they matter to me. I traveled to New York, to LA, to Texas, and Virginia. I meditated. I did yoga. I made art. I created and took down multiple different altars throughout the year. I went to the gym. I learned how to start investing in a Roth IRA in addition to my 401k. I'm learning how to adult. I lost my sweet dog, like I mentioned. I adopted a black cat. I held grief and joy simultaneously, which will just rip you apart, but in a very beautiful way. I ate really good food. I loved my body exactly as she is. I did energy work with a group that I meet with every month or so. So I practiced my energy healing techniques and my energy working techniques. I took a Return to Roots workshop and did ancestral healing with a group of badass women. I pulled tarot cards and I spoke into the void. I dreamed some wild dreams. I journaled. I rested. I booked my very first trip out of the country, which I'm going on in just a few days here. And in general, I felt a lot of feelings. If there's one thing that I think we can all agree on, it's that 2025 was intense and emotional in a lot of ways. And we're living through some really hard times. And it's a full-time job, balancing the nervous system, finding joy, prioritizing pleasure, taking care of ourselves and each other in these times. So if all you can do in this next year is just give yourself a little extra love, and then if you can spread that out to even one more creature or being or person in your life, that's enough. That's a lot. Even if you just take care of yourself, that's a great step one. So this is, like I said, I like to do these little recaps for myself because it also kind of helps me think about where I'm headed and what I want to focus on in the coming year. So on that note, I want to share with you some of the books that I'm already excited about reading for Shocks Talks for 2026. So first of all, I don't have it here physically. Oh, yes, I do. This is what I'm reading right now. This is a fictional book called Dawn by Octavia Butler. And Octavia Butler wrote the Parable of the Sower series, which is really good, but I've never read this one. And this is another series called Xenogenesis, or Lilith's Brood. And this is the first book. And, maybe skip ahead if you don't want to be anything to be spoiled, but I'm going to tell you just a little bit about this book. I have only read 111 pages so far, but this is a really interesting book where the main character, Lilith, Iapo, kind of wakes up in captivity. And basically she is in a strange, very sort of sterile, like in the sense that it's sparse, a cell. And there's these voices talking to her, and she's kind of put to sleep and brought back awake. And basically she ends up finding out that she's basically been abducted by aliens. And these aliens are these very strange beings that are somewhat humanoid at first glance, but the way that Octavia Butler writes about this woman's cognitive processing of these beings early in the book is so fascinating. The way that she sees what she wants to see, and then she begins to see the truth of who they are, is brilliant, and it relates so closely to so many experiencer stories. And then the way these beings operate and the whole plot line of what's going on Earth and why she's with these aliens and what's going to happen in the future is fascinating and feels like it could be real. And then there's these parts about like the species of alien and like their different customs and abilities and how they affect things. They call themselves the Onkali, and it means like traders, and they trade with other species. It's kind of like the story is like unfolding as we go, but so far they're trading like resources and help, and they're doing genetic modifications, and it's a little bit mysterious like what they really want in return or what they're really going to get, but it sounds so far like they're pretty peaceful and helpful, but also like there's this kind of cold and creepy air to it, you know, because you kind of don't know what's going on. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I'll probably talk about it on Shocks Talks just because these stories are really relevant to what we study here. And I think it's important to consider even works of fiction, because as we go deeper into these anomalous studies, first of all, the imagination is an extremely important part of connecting to non-human intelligence and the larger consciousness system itself. The imagination is one of the gateways into these other realms. And, you know, scientist Tom Campbell talks about how reading a book is an out-of-body experience by his definition, because you're shifting data streams. You're kind of letting go of the cognitive processing of the reality that you're in currently, and you're shifting data streams into this created reality that someone's imagination created, and your imagination is participating in that, and it's kind of taking you away into this other world. People who do visionary work and dream work often use creative visualization as a technique to move through. It's almost the tunnel that connects us to those other worlds where we can then begin to have the out-of-body experiences and things like that. So I feel that the larger consciousness system itself is starting to push me in the direction of wanting to pay closer attention to the creative nature of humanity, and to really focus on, care for, cultivate, and dive into my own imagination and the power of my own imagination, which I've been focused on my whole entire life. I mean, my literal name Shakti means creative life force energy. And so I've always been an artist and a creator. And it is also what I do for a living. And even though this channel is very focused on the research into the anomalous, I think that it's time for us to branch out a little bit and get a little bit weirder with it all. So this season, The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, we're going to toggle back and forth between things that are really happening and also what we can find in these stories. Because these souls, like Octavia Butler, this is like a treasure of a soul who left us this beautiful legacy of powerful, meaningful works. And who's to say that these works aren't meant for us all, you know? Like true artists are basically channeling from the collective. They're giving us back reflections of ourselves, but they're showing us probable and possible futures and pasts. They're tapping into that database, those Akashic records even, knowingly and unknowingly. And sometimes maybe even the non-human intelligences that are guiding the development of humanity are seeding artists with relevant and important ideas. Because if you study the collective and if you're at all tuned into synchronicities, you can see how these things all kind of ebb and flow together over time, and how many of our most important truths are buried within fictional works or woven into them. So that's going to be one of my focuses. Another nonfiction that I want to read is Ursula K. Le Guin, and it's the Lathe of Heaven. And somebody recommended this to me. I think it has to do with dreaming. So I'm reading about aliens, alien races interfering with human development and saving humans from nuclear disaster, and dreaming and how we influence reality with our minds. These are right up our alley. So those are going to be my nonfiction. I mean, those are my fiction. For my nonfiction, I'm going to read, the next book on remote viewing is this book by John Noble. It's called Natural Remote Viewing. I'm just continuing my practice and trying to get a little deeper into different techniques. The most recent thing that I tried, that you can try too, is based on transdimensional mapping. And this is Bertie Jaworski's technique. And what I adopted from her technique is, instead of when I do a remote viewing session and I kind of ask my subconscious all the different category questions, what are the colors of this target? What is this? What is that? Da, 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 da. Instead of doing that once, you do that step like 3 different times. You kind of start fresh. You write the number again, you do your ideogram again, and then you query the subconscious again. She doesn't call them targets, she calls them experiences. And she kind of encourages a looser approach that is less like controlled remote viewing, where you go through category by category and you prod the ideogram by literally poking your pen on the little sketch that you drew, and just every time you poke it, a new impression comes in your mind and you just write that down. So it's a new technique for me. I've had some success with it. I'm still feeling a little frustrated with my remote viewing because I'll get some really good sessions and then I'll just get a lot that are like mediocre. And I want to see myself really improve so that I can feel like this is a consistent ability that I can count on. But I may or may not have control over that. That may not be my thing. It's so far, I'd say I'm a decent baby remote viewer, you know? And I'm excited to keep going because these things take consistency. Like, they take discipline over time. Oren is snoring. Snorin' Oren is one of his nicknames. I don't know if you can hear the little noises. You know how like dogs make little like when they're dreaming? Apparently cats do the same thing. I didn't know. It's really cute. This year I really want to embrace more magic and art. I want to engage more imaginative ways of accessing the anomalous. I want to write some stories myself, some fictional stories. I want to write some actual accounts of things that have happened to me in a way that other people could read and make sense of. I want to meet new people who can connect with me on these topics and in deep ways. I want to live more authentically as time goes on and like basically just like be less afraid of being myself in the world. I want to maybe take my level 2 Reiki training. I've taken level 1 and it would be nice to take level 2. I want to continue to work on my psi abilities, my remote viewing. I want to have a safe, repeatable out-of-body experience. I want to learn to see without eyes. I want to try more PK. I want to basically move deeper into my soul's path and purpose. I might want to get a new tattoo this year. I also feel like all the astrology has been telling me like, this is your year for love, which, you know, who knows? But I like to think about, because I've been, I guess for the first, like, from the age of like 15 up to like about 30, I was constantly in a relationship. I started young and I stayed with people. Like, I changed relationships. Some of them were long, some of them were short, but I was always in a partnership, oftentimes living with another person. And this past decade of my life, I've dated off and on, but I've mostly been single. And I don't even know, I've gone so deep into my singleness. I'm like, is there any like coming back from this? Like, is there even any possible future that includes someone else? And do I even want that? I don't know, but I'm open to it. And so I'm thinking about like the couples that I see at these conferences, like Desiree and JJ Hertalk, or Richard Dolan and Tracy Garbett Dolan, and how cute it was that Richard and Tracy sent out like a Christmas wish video this year. Like, and I'm like, oh, could I have something like that? Could there be someone out there that wants to like be an adventure partner in learning and also that is compatible with me? Like, that would be cool. So these are the things I'm thinking of going into the new year. On the topic of back to aliens, but also spirituality, I learned about this new book by Dr. Joanna Kuyawa called Alien Goddess. And I'm really excited to read this book this year. It's UFOs, AI, and the Goddesses of Ascension. AI was a theme that was kind of bubbling up throughout the year for me, and there's a couple Shocks Talks episodes that touch on it. So I'm very curious to see what this woman has to say about it. I've listened to a couple of her interviews, and she has some pretty strong feelings about all of this. So it felt like an important work, and I'm excited, and I'll talk about it on Shocks Talks. And then this is going to be one of my big ones. This is kind of like my John Mack from last year, because I read Abduction, which was like 400 pages. This one is also over 400 pages, and this is a super intense story of an experiencer who not only had like the alien interference, but also military, government, my lab type stuff. I learned about her, Niara Terela Isley. Niara Isley. I learned about her from Richard Dolan. Facing the shadow, embracing the light. This is what Dolan says on the back of the book here. Niara Isley has written a powerful and beautiful book. Powerful because she tells a story of abduction by human and non-human groups. Beautiful because she offers genuine strategies and hope for others who have experienced the unexplainable. Here's another. This is Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, author of Exo Consciousness, Your 21st Century Mind. She says, with utmost praise for the author's work, I submit that writing Niara's book changed her life and that reading it may change yours. With gentle, poetic prose, she tells her story of disturbing proportions regarding celestials, humans, our government, and military. She makes sense of the senseless. She fearlessly probes our mirrored reality. She unleashes her anger, betrayal, and in a final triumphant round, she gains forgiveness. Niara teaches us that beyond hell, there is heaven, that higher ETIs surround us. Her final lesson is the most powerful. Choose life, love, and alignment with the highest extraterrestrials, one with God and our highest being. So this is cool. I mean, this is going to be, God, I hope I can get through this. It's dense. So I'm going to have to really buckle in for this one. But these experiencer stories are very important. I think one of the things that we learned last year is that sometimes in the study of anomalous phenomena, people really shy away from that which is messy, but the whole topic is messy and requires a lot of careful consideration over time. And it's all it's like a puzzle, but the puzzle is three-dimensional and all the pieces are floating in some kind of fluid and they're gelatinous, and so everything's kind of blobbing around. It's like, that's what it feels like to me. It's not like things just click into place super easily, but sometimes things kind of and then it's like you have a little bigger chunk and you're like, oh, that makes sense now. You know, it's very hard to grasp. And that is part of the nature of the phenomena itself. There was an interview recently, I believe it was on Dreamland with Whitley Strieber, and he had this ex-CIA guy, Jim Semivan, on. And the reason this is popping into my mind is because Pavel on Psychoactivo covered it just recently. And by the way, Pavel is like my new favorite for just UAP news. Psychoactivo. That is the podcast to follow. It's on YouTube. I'll link it in this episode. He's just great. Really short episodes. Covers all the stuff that's going on in the UAP news. I love it. So get with him. Follow him. He's amazing. And he's just a sweet guy. And he has he has his own perspective on things, but he's also just sharing a lot of information all the time. And he has a real journalist attitude, you know, in a modern way. Like he's really interesting. Anyway, he covered this little snippet from Whitley Strieber's interview with Leslie Kean and Jim Semivan. And in it, Jim was talking about how basically, like, if you want to study, like, disclosure has already happened. He said all the information's out there. He said it's in books. That's why I love reading the books. He said all the information is in these books, but it's not in all the books. And you can't say which ones are right and which ones are wrong, because he's an intelligence guy. So he's like, just get into the research. It's all there. And they're like, well, tell us exactly what books. And he's like, I can't do that, So I think that's for us to figure out. And the way to know what's true is to start merging your own experiences with the things that you're reading. And it's okay if we're wrong sometimes. It's okay if we have hope in a certain whistleblower or a government official and then they turn out to be full of shit. That's going to happen, It's better not to get too caught up in that, but to just continue letting all the information wash through, and then make sure to take these little breaks from the constant consumption of the content and actually start to analyze. So you do have to kind of sit back and analyze sometimes. And sometimes you just have to switch gears and like stop thinking about it altogether and live life. And that's fine too, because this is a lifelong pursuit of knowledge. We're not going to just get all the answers and be done. This is about the very core of who we are, the very nature of the reality system within which we are experiencing. It's spiritual, it's psychological, it's mythological. You have to study history, you have to study physical and non-physical, nuts and bolts, and the more woo-woo side of things. You have to really look at all of it. And he was basically saying, like, be careful also, because it can suck you in to some dark places. It can kind of suck you into chaos. It can pull apart your mind. He wasn't saying all these things, but I'm adding this to the story of why to be careful, because just studying this topic, it's got like a stickiness to it, and it starts to grab onto you and you become intertwined with it. It's very cool, and it's also can be a little creepy sometimes. And you have to be discerning, and you also have to know your own limits, and you have to have humility, and you have to know your own power, but you also have to know when you're not the most powerful presence in the room or whatever, So that being said, let's do a quick rundown of all the episodes. I can't believe I made 48 episodes this year. I'm going to try to fly through them. So first it was the mysterious drones. That was happening in January 2025. Then telepathy got really popular, and the telepathy tapes was starting to gain traction. Then we had Jake Barber and the egg-shaped UAP, and a lot of my episodes are kind of going back and forth between telepathy and Jake Barber, because Jake Barber is also introducing the word psionics into the mainstream discussion around UAP. And so we're starting to link the telepathic side of the nature of consciousness and how we communicate with NHI, and this whistleblower who is talking about his own psionic abilities that were trained, and there's going to be more of those that come throughout the year. I give an episode on the best psychic self-defense from my own experiences. I talk about the Akashic Records this year around episode 47 and 48, and the bonus episode after that gets a little bit into manifesting. Communication with NHI is episode 49. And in this, I talk about a psionics summit that was put on by Ubiquity University. It's called Outer Space Meets Inner Space. So you can see the theme that's emerging this year. It's a lot to do with the psychic stuff. Episode 50 is Do UFOs Come from Other Dimensions? There's more on Jake Barber and Skywatcher. 51 is describing the Skywatcher videos. 52 is about the question, is it dangerous to summon UAP? An important question to consider. And I go into the dog whistle, which is a mechanical device that puts out a frequency that has what they claim to be 100% accuracy calling in UAP. The New Paradigm Institute put out a newsletter kind of asking, is this okay? And I discussed that in that episode. Episode 53 is about new Tic Tac footage that was released on the Weaponized podcast. And this was a pretty important video because we end up later hearing from this witness, Alex Wiggins, and then he also later testifies at the hearing that happened in the fall. So in that episode 53, I also go over the Skywatcher taxonomy. So they're doing this research and calling in UAP, and then they're categorizing them. And I'll just quickly go over that for us again. I'll let you go watch the episode because it doesn't really matter. It's kind of cool, but like everyone's going to have their different categorizations for aliens, for UAP. None of them are going to be the official one, but everybody's always going to put their stamp on things and say like, we discovered this and this is what it is, So go look up that episode if you want to hear about what the classes were. Episode 54 is about the physicality of aliens and more about Jake Barber, more about Jacques Vallée, Richard Dolan, Diana Walsh-Pasulka, the ephemeral versus the physical, UFOs and nukes. This covers a lot in this episode. Consciousness phenomena. And then there's another episode, a little bonus on AI, NHI, and the alien perspective, which is a documentary by Dean Alioto, and that's part 1. 55 and 56, I talk a little bit more about what's going on with AI, ChatGPT, aliens and consciousness evolution, smart glasses, just advancements in technology and how it kind of relates to this stuff. 57 is about some new moon art magic that I was doing, and it's just kind of reflections on my own spiritual upbringing and background and noticing how magic and power can come from very dark places sometimes. And sometimes it is the dark night of the soul that actually yields the most powerful revelations, and also how embracing whatever life has to offer is the best way to learn life lessons. Just whatever is happening becomes the lesson. And then episode 58 is all about Alex Wiggins, this new witness. He's from the Navy, and he was a witness of this Tic Tac video footage that was released on Weaponized. The footage was from 2023. But it's just building on a pile of evidence that's important about other Tic Tac sightings in that area. Richard Dolan does some really good analysis of these videos around this time in the year. And then Immaculate Constellation, Matthew Brown, another big whistleblower, comes out this year, and he goes on Weaponized again, and he talks about this. He basically talks about legacy crash retrieval stuff. He's in the intelligence. He works at the Pentagon. He's an intelligence agent, and he stumbles across something he shouldn't have seen. He comes forward with the information. He's kind of met with a bunch of resistance. He's scared for his life. His career is ruined. He thinks he's going to die. He's still alive as far as we know right now. But anyway, it's a very emotional, him coming onto the scene is like a big moment. But so much happened this year. There were lots of those big moments, so that was just one of them. It's crazy. And then I finished reading Abduction by John Mack, and I do an episode on that, episode 60. Episode 61 is more on Immaculate Constellation because it was a 3-part release, and so this was on part 2. Episode 62 is on how to study anomalous phenomena. In case you're getting freaked out, let's remember how we need to tackle this information. Just bring it back to us, the student of the great mysteries, and how to continue moving through this wild information. Episode 63 talks about the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th, I believe. Some were calling him the new disclosure Pope, but nothing has really happened since then. He was elected on the 8th of May, 2025. But it's an interesting episode about some different connections with him. And the Vatican obviously has vast archives and have been reported to have information about aliens and NHI and UFOs, UAP. Episode 64 is starting to look at the ugly side of all this, the ugly side of the nuts and bolts, which is the money, the greed, and the power. And some of this was inspired by some of the work that the New Paradigm Institute is doing. I believe their white paper comes out somewhere around this time. But anyway, the episode is a recap of Matthew Brown, part 3 of his interview. And then he says a couple quotes here, like about the major news outlets being propaganda. He says it's shaping your life narrative intentionally so. And he talks about how the legacy program is held in an illegal international regime, the crash retrieval program. It's this criminal cabal, a mix of corporate, military, criminal, and intelligence people. They're taking this thing and they're basically making it the source of their wealth and power. So he's poking the beast a little bit here, but it's an important thing to recognize because there's a real reason why it's hard to make progress in this field, and that's part of it. And episode 65 gets into some crop circles that happened this year. If you remember back in May of 2025, well, I think that's when it was, but by May, there were 3 crop circles that have happened this year. And that one, the last one that happened around the time that I made that episode, was this beautiful kind of Celtic knot in this like square or diamond shape. And it was just so striking. I don't know. It really mesmerized me. I don't get too deep into crop circles, but this one really just spoke to me. I just loved the design of it, and I don't even know what it means really, but it was beautiful. It had this ancient Celtic fairy energy to it, and it made me think of love. Episode 66 is the truth about disinformation. So this is where I read a really great white paper by Kevin Wright for the New Paradigm Institute called Disinformation, the U.S. Government's Suppression of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena and Advanced Science. And the key themes of the report were basically how secrecy has been systematically maintained by various government branches. There's been a systemic suppression, and the U.S. government has used legislative controls, overclassification, and social ridicule to actively shape public perception and hide the reality of non-human intelligence, NHI, and advanced technologies, which this is kind of reinforcing Matthew Brown's vague but also pointed comments on this same topic. The historical context in the paper draws on declassified documents and whistleblower testimony to trace a decades-long campaign of obscuring what he calls the most profound issues of our time. And then there's a call for reform. And it's basically about the UAP Disclosure Act and the establishment of an independent records review board to lift the veil of secrecy. So, bless the New Paradigm Institute. They are trying really hard to work with the powers that be, the systems that we have, to affect change in a dignified and methodical and respectful way. But you're dealing with criminals, You're dealing with the power, money, and the greed and the control that is like way beyond civilized discourse and legal measures, So it's kind of, it feels futile at times, but it's not necessarily, and they believe in what they're doing enough to continue trying to pass this UAPDA, to continue trying to rally all the citizens for disclosure, to try to work with the Congress and to really point out the truth of what has occurred, make it known to the people. But, it's hard to get people's attention. It's hard in this day and age when we're completely flooded with information 24/7 via our phones, like a little main line straight to the nervous system of nonstop information. It's really hard to slow down and be like, whoa, the government did these evil things, and this is the evidence of that and the paper trail of it, and here are the examples of the different programs that they carried out in order to do these different things, like that's what the white paper was like. But it's hard to even like retain that information in this day and age. It's hard for me. Maybe you have an eidetic memory, and if you do, I'm jealous. That was something cool from this book by Octavia Butler. She talks about the eidetic memory, which is basically like almost like a photographic memory, but it's like you learn something once and you know it forever. And Whitley Strieber talks about that. And in the novel that I'm reading, the aliens are able to alter her in some way to improve her memory. And I'm like, oh my God, aliens, if you're listening, can you please do that for me? Can you please upgrade my consciousness? Make me a savant. Please let me know every quote on every page of every book I read. Please. That is my Christmas wish and my birthday wish. But until then, all I have is this and my little notes. So, thanks for bearing with me. Episode 67 is about contact in the desert, which I went back to, and episode 68 and 9 are about a book that I bought there from Jason Quitt at his table, and it's called Astral Experiences. It was great, and that's all about his exploration of consciousness through the out-of-body experience. In episode 70, I talk about The Fourth Mind, Part 1. That's Whitley Strieber's newest book. And then episode 71, I'm back on my OBE BS. Anyway, I'm talking about things that I do, how I'm working towards these psi abilities and these OBEs. Episode 72 is about meditation. 73 is The Fourth Mind, Part 2. Book report, Whitley Strieber's new book. And then 74 is dreams and remote viewing. And it's also July 22nd, 2025, which marked my 2-year anniversary of making Shocks Talks. So in 2 years, I made 74 episodes. Not too shabby. In 75, I'm heading to the Psi Games. In 76, I'm reporting from the Psi Games, day 2, reporting from my hotel in Charlottesville, Virginia. 77 is my post-Psi Games reflections, and I'm so honored that I was able to attend the very first ever Psi Games. It's going to be big. This thing is growing. It's going to be a very important conference. It's the perfect counterpart to Contact in the Desert, because Contact in the Desert is really focusing more on UFOs and aliens, and the Psi Games is focusing on human potential. I love it. I love the two together, and I want to go to both this year, but it costs thousands of dollars to do these trips. So help me grow my channel, people. And if you want to donate, if you have money, I always have links to my Venmo and my PayPal or Patreon or whatever. Like, I don't have Patreon. What am I talking about? You can send me money. You can also just give me likes and you could even send me an energetic abundance wish from your heart right now. I will take it. I will take all the good energy I can get. I want to go to these conferences. I really want to go to the IRVA conference too, which is the International Remote Viewing Association. That was one that happened this year that I missed, that I would have loved to go to. So then after that, where was I? The 2-year anniversary, Psi Games. Episode 78 is when I start my remote viewing playlist, and you can start to explore that playlist. And I talk about remote viewer Tracy Garbutt Dolan and just a really cool talk that she gave. 79 is more experiments in remote viewing, and at that point I had only done 40 sessions. Now I've done 114. Almost done. Episode 80 is the UAP hearing. And 81 is my book report on Surviving Death by Leslie Kean. 82 is more about psi and perception. Really good timestamps on this episode. Lots of interesting information here. I know that I'm not nailing it with my thumbnails, and I know that my titles are not giving you all the information of what's in each of these episodes, so I need to get better at that. But doing this recap episode is a way for me to remind you, like, oh, if I want to hear about that thing. And I'm going to put it all in the description box below so go check out this one, go check out that one, It's always fine to watch these out of order, but they are chronological, so that's also an option if you have tons of time and you love Shocks Talks. I really do want to continue to get better so that I'm like serving the audience more. But it's very important to me too that I follow my heart and do this my way, because it's like This is my soul's offering, you know? So episode 83 is the one that got the most views of all of Shock's Talks ever, which, like I said, was like 500 views. Maybe one day I'll be saying like 500,000 views on this video, but today it was 500, and that was amazing, and I was very proud of myself. Growing a YouTube channel is not easy, by the way, and it takes a long time, come to find out. And a lot of the greatest podcasters out there started humbly, and many of them had to build over many years, and I might need a little help someday from like someone else, but for now we're doing great. So that episode 83 that got all the views was Psionics Speak. So I had a cool title, first of all, but it was Dan Sherman and Jordan Jozak. And Dan Sherman, you know, he wrote that book Above Black, and I learned about it from Richard Dolan years ago. I read it, I loved it, I reported on it on Shock's Talks, and then he ended up going on American Alchemy, I think it was, with Jesse Michaels. And when it was. And when he spoke out, it really reinvigorated the community around this topic of psionics. And as we know, earlier in the year, Jake Barber had brought that onto the scene. The telepathy tapes was bringing us more interest around these psychic topics. So there's a convergence, you know, you could call it orchestrated disclosure, or it could be the larger consciousness system itself orchestrating its own version of disclosure, where it's like, we are upgrading the system. We need everybody online. We're going to tackle it from all these different angles. None of y'all know what's going on, but you will experience it, you know? Like, why did Kai Dickens choose to make the telepathy tapes? Why did Dan Sherman finally do an interview after all these years? It's like there's something bigger than any human management, you know? Maybe it's NHI. Maybe it's NHI. Maybe it's the larger consciousness system itself. Maybe it's angels. Who knows? Or maybe it's just this confluence of factors, you know? Maybe it's really just this natural movement that's happening. It's tricky to say, but it feels a little bit like there's intelligence behind this. This year was super big, and I think we're going to see 2026 and 2027, things are going to ramp up even more. Based on a lot of predictions that other people have made, and just the way things are flowing is why I'm saying that. Also, Chris Bledsoe had some predictions about 2027. A lot of people, even like Bashar channelers, are saying that 2027 is the year that we have open contact. Wouldn't that be so cool? Kind of something to live for, isn't it? Like, oh, it would be interesting. Anyway, some people say that the first wave of open contact is going to be the introduction of the hybrids that already walk among us, like the old David Jacobs book, like Walking Among Us, you know, that aliens are already here and they look like humans. I think I've met a few. Episode 84 it was recorded on November 11th, so it's an 11/11 episode about synchronicities, and it's actually pretty good, even though I'm in a bathrobe when I recorded it. It's about merging with the mystery. There's some talk about a Kelly Chase video that was interesting and kind of caused a ripple in the Twitter sphere this year, and then there's a little bit more about the second annual Global Disclosure Day, which happened on October 21st, 2025, and that's a day created by the New Paradigm Institute to kind of mark every single year. We're going to have a huge forum with all these people and see where we're at and what's going on. It's a beautiful production, and you can access it online. And episode 85 is my review of Dan Farah's Age of Disclosure documentary, which is like the biggest thing that just dropped recently. It's got a very nuts and bolts and militaristic flavor to it. It's a little bit fear-mongering. It's very dry, but to the point. It's a valuable, important documentary in this whole movement for disclosure, but don't take it alone. Like, pair it with all the other things that are out there. You know what I mean? Don't just get into that and then be like, well, now I know everything and we gotta shoot them aliens. You know what I mean? It's kind of has that vibe to it in the end. Like, it could be rallying people to just be very afraid, and then the military's like, don't worry, we'll save you. You know, aliens have been here, but, we've been working hard behind the scenes to reverse engineer their craft, and now we have our own alien reproduction vehicles, not reproductive. We have ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles that we've reproduced based on their stuff, and we can deliver nuclear payloads in an instant anywhere in the galaxy, and we're gonna fight them or whatever. Like, just don't go down that road, people. That is not the way. We all know that if we're here. But that's part of this whole thing. That's one facet of this multifaceted jewel of knowledge. And then finally, episode 86 is my book report on The Seventh Sense by remote viewer Lynn Buchanan. And now here we are at the very end of the Consciousness and Anomalous Phenomena Today season of Shocks Talks. And we're moving into The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, where we will continue to learn about the truth, and we will also value and study and take note of the fiction that may point to the truth. I hope you all had a good 2025. I know it wasn't easy, but I love you. I'm sending you my intentions for everything that you want and need for your highest good in alignment with the good of all. May we learn, may we grow, may we evolve, may we experience joy and pleasure, and may we see this world flourish. May we find our way towards greater peace and understanding, cooperation, coherence, harmony, balance, and let's have fun. I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.